Right, this is just a little quick video just to show you some Roman armor and Roman weaponry that they would have had at the time in ancient Roman times. Obviously I've had to modify stuff for my short film because I can't get a lot of this stuff because it's too expensive, and to do it properly would require a budget, and I've already spent over £300 and now I'm spending more on CG models, so forgive me if I'll be brief. Now let's start off with the helmet, which is the Galilea, or Galea. Basically that was the standard sort of issue Roman helmet that all the infantry would have, developed over the years. They kind of like open up the earpieces so they could hear commands better, but at the beginning, including in ancient Greek times, that are all covered up, so that's one thing that the Romans did modify. Now let's talk about the pilum, which was their javelin spear. They would have a lot of sort of javelin spear sort of throwers and stone throwers, slingshotters, all that stuff. Not just the main guys with the shields and the rest and the gladius and all that. So they'd have different kind of forms of soldiers, different ranks, and it kind of evolved over hundreds of years, or 1,000 years that the Romans really in power. So anyway, so that's the pilum. I had to kind of create it out of like nothing, out of basically a washing kind of like a pole, and then I added a kitchen screw at the top, and then keeping the Roman sort of colors. Now let's talk about basically the shield, and this is an accurate shield, but I had to kind of recreate it just so I had something, basically like the formations, which I try to do, and when we're doing the full CG models and everything, then it'll obviously look way better, and I've got them, I bought some already. But this is known as a scutum or a scutum, and this is what they did their shield walls with, the testudos, which was the tortoise formations. And I had to make this out of some Nigerian material, and that's just some lightweight sort of plastic with some aluminium foil. I know it looks cheap, but obviously replace it with the real thing. It was just kind of for reference, so I had some sort of shield, and it's not actual the real size. The real size would have been a lot bigger. They're actually made of several plies of wood, which was curved in the end, so basically when someone would try to stab, then basically they would kind of like, kind of flank off or whatever, and they would never fully get in, full contact sort of straight away. So that's the shield kind of done. Let's talk about the knife that they had, which was kind of a dagger. This is known as a pugio. This is a real Roman one. This is kind of what I ordered with my Spartan stuff. I was way too small and it was a bit too kiddie, so it was a bit of a joke. But now in actual fact, it's come out like pretty good as my pugio, which is the little knife. Anyway, I'll keep that there because I can't really take it off. Let's move on to the gladius, which was, one of my favorite swords of all time. There I kind of made this sheath here for it, just basically some tape and all that, some cardboard in there. All that's come a bit loose now because I've been using a lot. Now I made this originally just so I had something more, not just running around with the swords. But a lot of the stances would have been like that. They would have had a very kind of straight on kind of attacking with the gladius sword. And there's a lot of sort of military commands with the gladius, gladium raconde, all that stuff, that's like draw your kind of gladius. But yeah, this is like honestly one of the coolest swords ever. They made this bit especially big at the end just to counterweight it, because this was a big ass steel. A lot of swords were a lot thinner, and the gladius was really thick. Not as big as this one's a bit exaggerated. But yeah, who knows, for big guys this probably would have been the right size. But I just love that sort of bulb at the end, just sort of way cool. Alright, that's the gladius done. I don't have the real leather shoes and all that, and the straps and the sandals. They take a bit of time, and because it's just like a little tutorial video, I thought I'd skip that. So let's not worry about the leather boots, but they would have had leather straps, not the ones like going up your sort of like the shin and the calf muscle, basically, because that wasn't very useful in battle. So they would have had like wraps really, and they were perfected the kind of the leather boots, if you will, the leather shoes at the time, which was pretty cool. They're definitely like on the top of their game with kind of costumes, uniforms. Once they got a lot more wealth, like originally soldiers had to pay for their costumes, can you believe it? And then they would serve in the army, and then they'd get a pension after 20, 30 years, whatever. Then they kind of changed with different emperors, and they made it a lot more friendly, so they supplied the armor and the weaponry towards the end, halfway through the Roman Empire, but at the beginning they did have to pay the soldiers. Now the breastplate, again, this is just what I could get. I had to kind of fill it up with cardboard because it was just a flimsy little rubber thing. But the real one was called Allori la Segmentata, and that was layers of steel. So when arrows and swords would kind of like attack people, they would just kind of veer off, they wouldn't quite get in. They wouldn't really get past the armor, the plated armor, which it was. And it was the most sophisticated armor until the history of man at that point. I mean, they would have had breastplates and stuff previously, but the Lori Segmentata, that was just the best armor at the time. It was top of the line, you know, no expenses paid really. Now let's move on to, I mean, basically I have a tunic underneath, which was always very common for them. Oh, my boxers are poking out, sorry about that. But either way, you know, they would have had boxers back then, they would have had a loincloth, you know, but I'm not going to go that far, I'm not that method. But yeah, then they would have had the leather belt, which would have been leather straps, and this again would have offered a little bit of protection, but it was more just like, I mean, more of a fashion statement, more part of the uniform, and you know, they went from there. Traditionally, they would have had a cape, and you know, these shoulder pads, obviously that would have been the steel plating armor, so forgive me for not having the real thing, but you know, I had to cut some corners. This is originally for a gladiator outfit, but I kind of repurposed it for pretty much all the eras, all the soldiers, all the warriors. But the cape is pretty badass, you know. Let's say this is the Spartan cape, and I love it with the Roman. It's like perfect, you know, because a lot of them, maybe not the infantry, but all the officers would have had it. The Praetorian Guards, for instance, they were usually in purple. So it was like to differentiate that they were the elite soldiers of the time. The standard uniform would have had this burgundy red, you know, but the Praetorian Guard, they're mainly to guard the emperor, and they were military police at the time. So they would like stay around Rome, bodyguard the emperor, obviously, if you go on travels and stuff like that, or dignitaries. And as it grew, they even fought in the Colosseum, can you believe it or not? Just because they're such badasses, you know, for the time, for the day. So I respect them, you know. I mean, you can see a bit in Gladiator how they come into the arena when Maximus is there and when the Emperor goes there, because they literally followed him everywhere. There was this personal elite, you know, bodyguards, if you will. But that's kind of it. So hope you like this little video. I'm kind of done with my test footage. We're just now going to move on to all the real CG stuff, which has taken a long time. And now with the virus breaking out and stuff, my computer guy is on lockdown. Now we can't do any work, so I'm just trying to do some videos to pass the time. And you know, I've been thinking about this for a bit, but I hope you enjoy it, hope you like it. And personally, I love the Roman times. This is one of the most fascinating times in period, and how they've influenced still to this day. So I mean, Nazi Germany was heavily influenced by the Roman Empire, and then they try to reclaim Rome as their own. They adopted the eagle symbology, and then again America, you know, it's supposed to be the good guys, but again, they're copying a lot of things off, say, I mean, the Romans, the Nazis, and how they employed like weaponry, military tactics, you know, military drills, all that stuff, the hardcore dedication of the soldier, the elite, you know, that all comes from ancient Rome. I mean, they're the most dedicated soldiers up until then, and the empire that they dominated was amazing. They're the only empire to really rule all around the Mediterranean. They had complete lockdown of the whole Mediterranean. Took them hundreds of years, many battles, they lost a few, but they won more than they lost. And as emperors came and went, then, you know, it's sort of success and, you know, like going backwards. So Caesar obviously improved a lot, but then they killed him off, so they went backwards in time. And then, you know, they had other emperors like Marcus Aurelius did a lot of good for building roads and, you know, attacking like the north and basically making trade relations, stuff like that. So like, I mean, say Hitler and all that, all dictators aren't necessarily evil and bad. They do some positive things as far as boost the economy, you know, and if they don't do that, they haven't done their job. So either way, Ave Caesar, and then peace out. Yeah.